All right, today we're breaking down a poem from the 17th century that has a message so modern, it's almost shocking. It's called A Married State, and it's basically a piece of advice that just completely flips the script on what society expected from women.
So, to really get why this poem was so revolutionary, let's start with a question. Just think about it for a second. For centuries, what was the one single thing that society told women would guarantee them a happy, fulfilled life? You got it. For hundreds of years, the answer was just simple: marriage. And you got to remember, this wasn't just seen as a lifestyle choice. It was pushed as the ultimate achievement, the default path to being happy and having any kind of social standing.
I mean, we've all heard things like this, right? This idea that marriage is this beautiful, joyful new chapter. It's the fairy tale image that has been sold for generations.
But the poem we're looking at today kicks off with a line that just shatters that whole idea. It claims marriage affords but little ease. Basically, it doesn't bring much comfort at all. Right from the jump, it sets up this powerful challenge to everything people were supposed to believe.
Okay, so let's dive right into this really surprising take on what was considered a sacred institution.
So, at its heart, A Married State isn't some romantic poem. Far from it. It's a piece of brutally honest advice. It argues that marriage isn't a source of joy. It's actually full of stress and problems. The speaker is basically saying, hey, think for yourself. Don't just follow tradition blindly.
So, let's move on and see exactly how the poem pulls back the curtain on all the hidden struggles of married life.
This line is so powerful. The speaker isn't just complaining about bad marriages. She says that even with the best of husbands, there's this constant draining pressure on the wife to keep him happy. It points to this fundamental imbalance that's a built-in source of stress.
And this right here perfectly captures the poem's main point about the huge gap between appearance and reality. On the one hand, society expects to see the happy wife. But on the other, the poem shows us the careful faces of married women, hinting that if you look close enough, you can see their silent struggles. It's all about exposing the hidden truth that a lot of women were suffering quietly.
And the poet doesn't just make vague claims, she gives really concrete, relatable examples. She talks about loud, bossy, blustering husbands, the very real physical pain of childbirth, and the non-stop stress of children's cries. These details make her argument feel so raw and real.
So after laying out all these problems with marriage, the poem presents this really compelling and, for the time, super radical alternative.
In a complete 180 from the married state, single life is described in these glowing terms. It's not portrayed as sad or lonely. Instead, it's a life that's crowned with much content, which means it's full of deep, genuine happiness and satisfaction.
And that happiness starts with peace. The poem highlights that you don't have to deal with arguments or loud, demanding partners. It's a life that's free from that very specific, very draining kind of emotional stress.
And that piece leads to the next big thing: freedom. Being single means being freed from all the cares, all the worries that come with managing a husband, a household, and children. It's a state of total mental and emotional liberty.
And ultimately, all this freedom allows a woman to focus on herself. The poem suggests that without all the worldly problems of marriage there to distract your prayers, she can find a much deeper sense of personal and spiritual well-being.
This is where the poem's tone shifts a little bit. It goes from just describing things to giving some very direct, very personal, and frankly, very urgent advice.
It's almost framed like a wise mentor trying to steer a younger woman away from a huge mistake. The speaker is saying, look, turn away from that fleeting, superficial romance. Get a handle on those wild emotions that can push you into a bad decision. And most importantly, use your head. Don't just let your desires run the show without thinking things through.
And all of this builds up to the poem's final, and I'd say most empowering conclusion. It's really about taking control and defining happiness completely on your own terms. Now, to understand just how bold this poem really is, we have to ask, back in those days, what was the biggest, scariest threat used to pressure women into getting married?
Well, it was this bizarre and terrifying belief that if a woman died unmarried, she'd be punished in the afterlife by being forced to lead apes in hell. Yeah, I know, it sounds crazy to us now, but this was a common social and religious threat used to make sure women conformed. So what's the poet's response to this awful threat? She just dismisses it. Completely. She flat out states that this whole idea is false. And for her time, that was an incredibly courageous act of defiance.
So what does this all boil down to?
This poem is a powerful call to question tradition, to expose the hidden struggles that often lie just beneath a perfect-looking surface. It's about valuing independence and freedom, and ultimately choosing a path based on your own happiness, not on what society expects from you.
And that leaves us with one last thought. This poem was written centuries ago, but its message feels timeless, doesn't it? In our modern world, which is filled with its own unique set of expectations and pressures, how do we define, and maybe more importantly, defend our own path to happiness?